Okay. So hello everyone. This is our AI and Values seminar number 4. We are very glad to have Shima Beigi here with us, and she will be telling us about the ethics theater on AI power and the fiction of values. Very, very timely talk for today. So thank you, Shima. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much, everyone, for being here with me. And I just explained a little bit that the flow of this conversation, this seminar, is going to be a little bit different. I have been note making for the past 6 months, writing specifically on values. Since I live in a very peculiar time, I am going through a profound reflection on my professional and personal life, and kind of dealing with a lot of disillusionment that I have experienced since past year, and witnessing from really personal point of view how values are actually declining in our world and impacting relationships and friendships, and eventually workplaces, also institutions, and so many, I think, areas of today, I think, social life. The title that I chose for this conversation is The Ethics Theater on AI Power and the Fiction of Values. And as I mentioned, I'm going to read through, let me just, okay. Oh, sorry. Okay. Okay, so I'm starting to read the Kathmandu effect. As I'm giving this presentation, I am in Nepal, sitting in a monastery on a hilltop view on the Kathmandu Valley. I last visited Nepal in 2010, and since then, so much has transformed. The valley is now fully urbanized. The traffic is extremely heavy, yet there are few serious accidents, thanks to the speed limits, motorbike helmets, and the timeless guiding values of grace and togetherness. I also went to visit places I remembered from my 2010 visit, places that were damaged by the earthquake in 2015. I sat with my friend, a monk who oversaw the rebuild of monastery after the earthquake. He shared how political corruption continues to hinder adherence to building codes. Many newly built places can still be vulnerable. As I listened to him and reflected on my observation, I wonder whether an AI-assisted platform could help reinforce earthquake-resilient design without requiring direct governance intervention. I let the thought disappear. This is the second country in the past year where I have lived in the global south. And it's becoming clear to me that when it comes to advanced technologies, the conversation remains steeply focused on Western societies, as if there is a universal set of values that spring from the West. Yet the challenge the West faces are fundamentally different from those of the global South, and of course, the Middle East. The notes I'm going to read for you is from another event that happened while I'm still here. Around Monkey Temple, there is a man that sells birds in a cage in an exchange of a prayer, which I call it the cage of values. I'm doing Kora, a devotional act of turning around the sacred sites while reciting mantras. I am deeply immersed in the practice when a man interrupts me. He speaks in Nepali. I do not understand his words, but he brings a large cage of small birds right into my face. Through gestures, he makes it very clear he's asking me to buy birds' freedom, inviting me to partake in what it seems to be a noble act. I pause. I look into his eyes. My gaze carries an unspoken question, one I know and I sense he knows too. He holds my gaze, then moves on to someone else. I stop reciting. I stand still, and instead, I look at him disappearing. I feel a strange sense of loss and anger. Devotion is not hypnosis. There is a fine line between the two, where the repetitive rhythm of mantra can sometimes blur the discernment, turning sacred attention into automatic motion. It is exactly this confused state of awareness that traps value and make it into fiction-like, almost like a theater. A few meters later, a strange sense of déjà vu washes over me. I think there is a microphone that is on. Okay. A few meters later, a strange sense of déjà vu washes over me. I have seen this scene before, not here, not in the sacred enclosure of this temple, but far away in secular places, in academia, in AI circles, in technology forums. It is the same performance, this attempt to reclaim the very freedom we were born with, but have handed over to the machine makers of Silicon Valley. Today, the discussion around AI and values feels like those beings whose rights to be was violated under the weight of hypocrisy and the emotional manipulation of marketplace morality. Tech companies, in other words, cage not just freedom, but precious attention, then sell us the solution as virtue. Hypocrisy, cognitive numbness, and moral corruption are among the pressing moral issues of our times. The call to action must target these poisons to deroot them from the depth of our current political, governance, and citizenship action stream. Alter on a ground. And yet today we are looking to delegate even the act of opening our hearts to machine. This is a section I wrote after another thing that happened around the same area. A few days later, a monkey around the temple attacked me. I now have to take the rabies vaccine. It is early morning, and I'm walking towards the emergency section of the hospital near the monkey temple. The road is already busy. Motorbikes, cars, and the sounds of horns. Shops are slowly opening, and the streets are full of devotees. As I walk further, I notice that everyone is quietly avoiding a small section of the pedestrian road. When I get closer, I see red color powder on the ground, flower petals, and a single incense stick gently burning. Someone has just made offering to Lord Shiva near a small temple that stands a few hundred meters ahead. There is no sign, no barrier, no explanation. The only thing marking this place is devotion, and yet everyone knows something sacred is here, something shared and understood without words. It creates a stable ground, a field in which value becomes visible, shining through the body of society. Just like a jewel that needs a stable setting to shine, value in the world needs a stable base. And I think that base is the human heart. And yet today, we're looking to delegate even the act of opening our hearts to machines. So I think I'm going to speak from the mind now, and then I move on to my notes. So I think when it comes to AI and values, I think the question has always been, for me, very clear that AI really mirrors the world that it comes from. It's not an alien. It's not coming from someone else. It's not coming from another planet. It really comes from our own biases and really inherits our hierarchies and reflect the unspoken hypocrisies that I think it really shines maybe in a positive way, things that we hide, things that we don't want to talk about. So the question isn't just how to make AI ethical. It is how to confront ourselves, the values that we have abandoned so easily. And these are the background images. I think they need no explanation because I think we know them and we just need to stop talking and just remembering those. This is an article that I highly recommend reading that I think really sheds light on the bringing back the ideas of Michel Foucault, biopolitics that is not dead. I think it's just becoming more digitalized. And we're realizing, as I mentioned earlier, that there is no universal set of values that are streaming from the technology developers. There are values that we just we just need to travel around the world and sit with different people from different communities, and you see how much we don't know. I mean, at least this is the lessons I am learning from moving around. I mean, I think the blessings of being homeless is to being exposed to kindness and compassion of other people's houses and homes that they basically received me, to see that there are things that glue people together. And I think the danger that we are facing is just thinking there are things that we can code. And as I develop and this conversation, I really want to bring the attention to the values that are so implicit, they're so hidden, yet so visible at the same time. So really, values encoded in the AI are not universal. They're historically and culturally situated. They're rooted in power. I see them right now as I'm, some of you know, I have an Iranian origin. As I sit here really worried about my family, really worried about the state of the world, the state of Middle East, all the humanitarian crisis we're seeing in Gaza, I think it's just, I think, overwhelmingly pointing towards something is really, I think, collapsing. And I think the other parts that is very also important, this is not just my observation right now, since last year being in Morocco and Nepal, is also from my time that I spent in 2019 when I was in Indonesia. Just seeing that the startups and companies that are coming from the basically Western kind of like world are just thinking that they can import and impose AI systems that are founded on individualistic and capitalistic drives. I mean, the global south overwhelmingly is not individualistic. The individual really holds not no value, but the individual is really like a mandala. It's part of the whole and an integrated part of the whole thing. So I think this is a great lesson for myself as I'm living here and I'm experiencing. So now let's be a little bit practical, not so, I think, metaphysical, and give you a little bit of also food for thoughts for those of you who like to really think in terms of like what technology, what are the values that actually value in the AI. So the global south, I think the L should stand for local, not just large, like local language models we need, not just large language model. And I specifically want to speak about the case of Nepal as I was reading through the development plans that was published by Global Bank. That something that really shocked me, shocked me because I was ignorant, obviously, is that the labor migration and the amount of like the percentage of GDP in Nepal that depends on remittances. Remittance is the income coming from the migration labor. The 20 to 27% of GDP actually of Nepal really it depends on that. Really, families really depend on a single person, usually men, going to countries like India and in the UAE region to do construction work. And normally this is not an exchange. If you think about like the amount of money that they bring home, it's shockingly actually not substantial when we think about, for example, the salaries that are given in, for example, European countries or other parts of the world. This is like a risk taking for $400 or to $500. So you can imagine like this amount of money, people put themselves in such extreme risks of not physical risk and also like political and also violation of their human rights, as it is seen frequently, but also being fragmented from their family members. So one of the things I think that AI can bring value to regions like this, I think there are other parts of global south that have the same pattern with lesser dependence of their GDP on remittances, is really empowering communities, really creating, for example, rural connectivity, showing precision farming, because a lot of farmers depend on precision in order to be able to provide different types of like products and Also creating a knowledge bank with AI indexing that doesn't exist, for example, here in Nepal. And a lot of skills are just hidden. You walk around different parts of city, you see a lot of people have actually skills that other parts of the world need, but they're not aware of. But so creating like a bank of these skills, I think, can be of I think extreme help, and also support, and also preservation of cultural identity of places. Education and AI tutoring, obviously, I think this is something that everybody speaks about these days. Local language models, the majority of language models that are developed on English, and texts that are not actually of different places, and a development of conversational AI models like local chatbots that can help, for example, farmers. In terms of environmental hazards, I just spoke about earthquake and flooding. Nepal is one of the most earthquake, basically, potent areas, sits on a tectonic plate. It is facing heat waves, specifically because there are not so many greeneries in terms of like urban planning. As you look at the rapid pace of urbanization in Kathmandu Valley, just shockingly exposed to heat. Also, AI-powered forecasting systems that aim to predict landslides, deforestation, biodiversity, and protection, and health, obviously. So there is value in AI, but that value really, I think, has to be grounded and hinged on local culture, identity, and specifically language, and really address those issues based on the worldview of these different places. The landscape in the global south, so thankfully, is changing. In the global south, basically around 2 billion people, 60% of people depend on being informally employed, like in street vendors, domestic workers, constructions, and so on and so forth. So right now, as I investigate here, for example, in Nepal, a lot of people use WhatsApp as a way of kind of like promoting themselves. Mobile payments are kind of like becoming very popular. But still, I think the visibility, digital reputation, and all of that, I think, is just missing. But it can create a fair access opportunity to them. There are great actors in this region. I also in India, for example, this Vadhavani AI in India that has recognized the challenge early on in 2018 and started creating like a laboratory of AI solutions that are specifically designed for the challenges in the region. And I think one of the most popular cases that they had is the case of tuberculosis, that they created a monitoring system that was extremely successful. I think it was 97% success. There is a really nice article about it for those who are interested. The latest, I think, developments that I just discovered was LATAM GPT, which is a Chilean state-run artificial intelligence, basically, base development that is designed to safeguard indigenous languages, especially, I think, in Easter Island. I think these are developments that are emerging. So there are changes that are happening. People are noticing that the value in AI is not just a stream of value that comes from one specific place. Then there are landslide detection that are put in place in 2018, saves lives in Nepal. And I think another very interesting group that have emerged is AI Saturdays Lagos, that they hold advanced and all different level conversation about artificial intelligence and related subjects. Again, when we speak of values in AI, I think we should just go back to the points made in biopolitics. The challenge I think now we are facing is the full automatization, the push towards full automatization. Man, I think, when we think of design, used to be in the loop. Now automated system pursue radical optimization after eliminating the very peers, going back to peer-to-peer networks, that they won't support us. I think there is this kind of like a radical jump, I think, from peer-to-peer networks to just a network with nobody there. It's just, there's nobody there anymore. And I think it's a place where I think we're here, we're touching right now, because as changes happening in the world, specifically, I'm speaking about the latest, I think, developments between Israel and Iran. I kept thinking about the selective way of projecting information, as if some lives actually matter, some don't. So even if we are keeping the man in the loop, human in the loop, it seems that at this moment, there are only selected group of humans that are kept in the loop, where the humanitarian laws are easily bypassed. UN is sidelined, and I think the moral outrage also is kind of selective. So for me, the question is not, again, whether we keep man in the loop. I think the question is whether actually who is this man? Is this a certain group of people, a racial group, a color skin that are worthy of being kept in the loop, and the rest can be basically turned into some data sets or some sort of statistic? These are questions, I think, for me, that value is not just value in AI, but also in the changes of the notion of value itself. It seems that that also is changing. So Paris effect. This is going to be connected to the crisis of loneliness. So I just first present this slide. But I think what is happening, moving on from the global south, I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation that the challenge of global south and the value structures that are needed to be protected are different from the West. I think the West is facing a loneliness crisis that is going to be reinforced, that is being reinforced by smartphones addiction, and also it's going to be deepened by AI. And of course, death of seeing. We don't see anymore. And I'm referring to Aldous Huxley, The Art of Seeing, which has been guiding me for the past 6 months, rereading it again and realizing that, in fact, the challenge is not just the value that are coded in AI models, but also the value of the using correctly our sensory organs. I think those are also diminishing. So the Paris effect. After arriving in Paris and spending a few days in the popular Le Marais neighborhood, it was time to move on to my friend's apartment in the 10th arrondissement. I woke up very early, having struggled all night to fall asleep, wrestling with my thoughts about my professional and personal conditions. I pondered the conversation I had earlier during the day with my earlier that day with my spiritual teacher regarding my feelings and decisions to stay at the monastery for a while, to practice meditation and develop inner peace. I could feel that my chest was tightening. The room was incredibly small. I looked around. The entire room could be remembered in one glance. Without moving my head, I lay down on a bed, and with my inner eye, I could see the memories of the scene I had seen during the day replayed in my mind. A vehicle passes by, and with its headlamp reflected the building metalwork of the neighbor building on the on the ceiling of my room. For a moment, the ceiling of my small room became a projector screen. The next morning, I woke up, opened my eyes, and the entire room came back to my awareness, all at once, efficient and seamless. My phone was near me. I looked at it and suddenly realized there was a striking resemblance between the room size and the phone's screen. They both shrunk the world to make it like a cute little thing called life. Soaked in this thought, I looked at Google Maps to find out which cafes are open at that time of the day. The only option nearby was Starbucks. I put my clothes on and left the room. The short walking distance meant I could sit there and do some more writing without rushing back to the hotel and check out. As I left the hotel, a bus passes by with a big label, 100% vehicle, 100% electrical vehicle, Île-de-France, Paris. A group of bikes passed by. I could see the success of Anne Hidalgo, mayor of Paris, making Paris a bike-friendly city. I arrived at Starbucks, ordered my coffee and a croissant, and left to sit at a tiny table next to the window. I look outside the streets, the buildings, and the gradually waking up the city. I opened my laptop, and I immediately felt a new thought coming to my mind. This is it. This is future. Humans tied to smartphones, pigeonholed in tiny corners. Despite the negative image, I started writing, and after some time, the entire world vanished around me. I was not wearing headphones, so I could still hear the background sound. While writing and looking at my laptop screen, I could hear a man entering the cafe in the background, speaking loudly with a strong American accent. Then there was a new sound, ding. I had heard that ding before. It was the ding of Apple Pay. That seemingly innocent little ding revealed something profound, the illusion of connection between perfect strangers whose sole common ground might be their devices, further diminishing the depth of our shared human experience. There I was again, confronted with another layer of how fast the attention structure is being technologically modified below our awareness, subliminally even infantilizing humans with cartoon-like sounds perfectly working in tandem with how smartphones help shrink the world into tiny little bedrooms filled with billions of people turning into teenagers who just crave to go back to their parents' house, lock themselves up in their rooms, and remain forever young. So this is, I think, something that is happening is this, I think, infantilization. It's just this disintegration of the detachment, deep detachment that we are facing right now with the addiction to a smartphone, which is connected, obviously, to the values in AI, because AI is built on the previous waves of technology. So here I speak very, I think, quickly now about an observation I made in Florence. I went for a competition, running competition I had. The Florence effect, I call it. David of Michelangelo, a philosophical masterclass. What happens to the expression of human excellence when what we need, what we all need, our attention, is scattered across various streams and directions? Perhaps one of the gifts I have received from my experience of being jobless and homeless was the opportunity to truly see. My trip to Florence and visit to some of the greatest masterpieces of our time took my mind to a place I had been craving. Every step I took in the city was charged with beauty. The architecture was majestic, green and yellow buildings framed by shutters, beautifully exposed to the sun, so thoughtfully designed. There was no doubt in my mind. Florence was extraordinarily beautiful, with its shiny corners and quiet cafes and marble statues. But as I walked the streets, the art of seeing tucked in my bag in a reflective and somewhat melancholy mood. I couldn't help but to notice the crowd, their phones held high, pointed in various directions to capture images. Were they truly aware of the significance of Renaissance? Were they aware of the potential of these statues and artworks in today's turbulent times? Disappointed and left out, I found myself surrounded by all those digital storytellers and content creators. Yet I feel alone in my desire to simply be, to rest my eyes on iconic guideposts of humanity's potential. Florence, like no other city, exposed the problems of technocentricity and digitalization. This is a statue that is planted by Thomas Price, a British artist in Florence, which basically shows the problem that we have. British sculptor Thomas Price's statue, Time Unfolding, encapsulates the complexity of the human-machine relationship, inviting viewers to reflect on human connectivity in today's digital age. The sculpture portrays a teenage girl absorbed in her phone, oblivious to the beauty and significance of her surroundings, embodying modern digital engagement. Installed in Florence, Piazza della Signorina, one of the world's most iconic squares. The statue is intentionally positioned with her back to the Cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiora, mirroring the contemporary trend of visiting cities not solely for their historical and cultural, artistic, or religious significance, but for their content-worthy, Instagrammability, digital likability attributes. Concepts like virality, likability have become implicit filters influencing modern perception and interactions. Aldous Huxley, The Art of Seeing, expands on the idea that the mind and body function as a unified whole. Physiological and perceptual strains can diminish our capacity to truly appreciate the gift of sight and its inherent value. As the fragmentation between reality and the body increases, the memory image unit upon which one naturally constructs the inner world and vision of life begins to distort. This distortion, caused by omission of crucial parts of reality by greedy actors and gainers, turn perceiving intelligences into a dull and eventually inert zone. As more and more time is spent on screens and so-called smart devices, the disconnect from the world. This results in less sharp memories of surrounding space, shallow mental images, and consequently a deeper mind, vision, emotion disassociation. Huxley further argues that vision and thus seeing greatly depend on the imagination, which is naturally constructed by the mind in a state of alert positivity and dynamic relaxation. Alert positivity refers to a form of positive faith that one is capable of interpreting the world by naturally engaging with it without the pressure of reducing it into digestible bits. The reflex of continuously reaching for smartphones to capture the world before the totality of the scenery is captured by the biological sensory organs, namely the five senses, leads to a fear of not seeing properly, similarly to the fear of missing out. Consequently, this creates negative, pessimistic convictions about the content of the world, leading to distorted sensing, discriminatory seeing, and unnatural functioning of perfectly capable eyes. This, in turn, weakens the mind efficiency as an interpreter of reality. The net result of this insidious process is ironically subnormal biological sensing in the age of modern advanced technology. Not surprisingly, this justifies the current palliative, sedative man-machine relationship, making it accessible to the use of technology as a crutch on society's path towards sustainability. So another challenge that I think is very, very important as I'm living, I think, a monastic life, if I can call it that way, is this, I think, cage of secularization. I mean, I am really observing that one of the obstacles toward cherishing the precious, the valuable, the sacred. I know some people are allergic to the word sacred, but there are things that are beyond the grasp of imagination, beyond the grasp of intellect, I think are illegible. Like inner life has become something that nobody wants to talk about. Reality is reduced to functions and content, as I explained earlier. Knowledge is everybody knows something. Wisdom is some marginalized. The sacred beyond grasp is marginalized, and loyalty to speed and selective optimization, I think, is celebrated. And we see crisis of loneliness and crisis of meaning. So what is the way? The way out. I think the way out, in my opinion, is really looking at the heart, taking the heart as a necessary part of the conversation in AI, because I think the heart, the vast seat of compassion, where we actually can hold each other, bring each other into our being, therefore designing from that place, is the least used organ of 20th century human. And finally, I want to end with enlightenment in AI times, lesson from a master. I feel very fortunate to be at a very extraordinary time here in Nepal, as one of the most realized human beings have passed away. He had lived 100 precious years, that I think every year he lived is a teaching. And I think the teachings of these masters are so necessary to guide, I think, especially technology developers. And I also want to bring your attention to conditions required for enlightenment. I find it very ironic also, because the text about realization, full realization, explains about the inner and external conditions and general conditions to achieve enlightenment. And reading that book really made me think about how easily the opportunity, how easy it is, actually easy, a bit loaded, to be enlightened at this time compared to 100 years ago, compared to 200 years ago. Why? Because first of all, the very first condition for enlightenment is being born as a human being. And I think the loss of precious human life is just, I think, if we understand how important it is to be human, how precious a human life is, I think maybe we can change how we are narrate stories of different humans from different places. The external conditions to achieve enlightenment is being born in times where teaching is available. I cannot think of any time that is more potent in terms of availability of teachings of any discipline, any even secular thinking, like intellectual and also philosophical things are so available, but it seems that they don't penetrate enough. And I think it's because of the incapacity. I think the heart has become important in taking those lessons. And then the general condition, that physiological needs, I think we live in a time of abundance, even though there are places in the world that are still struggling with poverty. But I think generally the physiological needs in terms of like access to resources has dramatically increased. So what can we take away as interested individuals in tech? I want to share some lessons from His Eminence Yunzing Lopon Rinpoche, passed away on 12th of July, is that reading his teachings, I think his teachings remind myself first and foremost, and perhaps others, that awareness does not need optimization. Awareness is simply is. So I think the attention span and the pressure on the awareness, I think, is a hindrance, is an obstacle to value creation in latest technologies. Timeless presence in a transient world. The world is an impermanent space. So really that preciousness of moments, I think, something that I take away from the lessons. Amid the noise of machines and algorithms, His Eminence embodied the stillness that no system can compute. So I think there are things that machines cannot do, and I will show you what machines cannot do. And knowing the nature of your mind, it's something that I think we really, I think, forget to educate ourselves on the nature of the mind. That is a source of suffering and happiness. That is also the source from which we design technologies. As I mentioned, AI comes from the world. This world is not coming from another world. So I think we need Dharma work, lessons from monastic living. I think there are actions that can be mechanized, I think, I don't know if that word exists, automatized, maybe it's a better word, but the physical action of devoting oneself, it has a meaning, a value that cannot be encoded into machine. Brooming, for example, I broomed, and I thought about Hoovers at times when it was difficult to broom, but at the same time I realized what is the philosophy behind it. Dishwashing, the dishwashers can do it, but there is also something behind it that goes beyond the machine function as a reduction of that act into function. Mandala offering, the drones today can do it. You can automatize them and make them design a drone, a mandala in the sky, as we see in Olympics and other events. So I think there are things that I think better kept to to the human, so that we can preserve, I think, something that is valuable. And finally, I want to thank you for your attention. This is a picture of Persepolis in Iran. I thought to share it with you. And thank you. Thanks so much for your attention.
Thank you, Shima. Thanks a lot. I think very comprehensive review of the concept. There might be some music behind here, so I will open the stage for questions. If anybody has a question, please raise your hand, and we will follow one by one. Okay, Colin, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for that, Shima. That was really nice and interesting. I'm definitely with you on this idea that AI is made from humans, and of course from here, and it's made by a particular group of humans, as you pointed out, right? So you seem to locate this in something vague, something like the West, right? And then you mentioned, okay, so the L, and I suppose you're referring to the LLMs here, right? It shouldn't just be large; it should also be local, right? So we should hinge our AI values on kind of cultural identities, you said. And I mean, Ross, I'm with you on localizing knowledge somehow. Um, I still struggle, and maybe you can provide an answer for me. But so even if you localize, you will always have exclusions, right? There will always be voices that are not heard, right? Even local communities are not homogenous, right? And it's true that sure, right now if we think about the entire world, it's certainly not homogenous. But even if we were to localize to a small community, to Nepalese farmers, for example, even though I know nothing about them, I'm convinced that there will be disagreements, different points of views, different values, right? Of what is more important, making more money or treating the earth nice and well, and sustain it in some sense, and other disconnects. So how do you deal with that? I mean, so that my point is basically, no matter how far you zoom down, you don't really get to a homogeneous enough group to solve the issue. At least in my head. What do you have to say about this?
Thank you, Colin. I think it's a fair point, but at the same time, I mean, my point, like my view wasn't about perfection. I don't believe in. I mean, I mentioned extreme secularization, for example. I think the point of going extremely towards a perfect design model. I don't speak about perfect design. I don't think that perfect design actually exists, but I do think that the current large language model, yes, L for large language model, are overwhelmingly not representing diversity at all. So a step towards using local data in service of local, I think it's a win-win for everybody. And again, yes, of course, there will always be somebody that is left behind, but at the same time, you roll out different types of education plans, upskilling, and I think if you don't start, if you don't take the first step, then you don't know even what are those challenges that exist at the moment. Nobody, like very few people, have taken steps toward providing local value of this advanced model for local use case and places that they don't speak English simply. I mean, English is not their language. So I think for me, starting from somewhere is the priority. And later on, I think the challenge, I think by engaging local communities, by engaging with different representatives of communities, by further, I think branching down the models to reach more people, I think that would hopefully, I think, bring more and more people under the fold of a valuable technology. I think that is how I see it. I don't have a radical view, a perfection view. I don't believe in perfection. I don't believe that something like that exists. I believe in evolution. I believe in daily, not daily, but basically upgrading the model and being engaged with the changes of the time. I think that's how I reply to you, Colin. I hope that it lands effectively, or if there is any other, I think, question, I am happy to take.
Yeah, I quite like that answer. It does go against what Francis was telling us, right? So Francis, if I understood him correctly, I mean, that's of course a question, but what I took from Francis's talk in this AI and Values series was that basically, let's blow up the model even more. Let's, let's just use more data, more stuff. And then once we have all the voices heard, right, the kind of this idea of the this ideal, the million ideal of the free marketplace of ideas, everybody gets to speak, right? So and an AI and LLM could theoretically do this, right? So you can just crawl the entire internet and basically have everybody who has voiced some opinion on something, and if then languages, sure, there are still issues, but we might fix them later. Or they are already being fixed. I mean, many other languages than English are already, being tracked. And once we have all of them, and then that will somehow stabilize some kind of underlying general values. That was Francis's claim. Now, I have my serious doubts about this, but you seem to go in the other direction here, right? So you seem to say, no, let's not blow it up. Let's localize. Let's slim it down.
Yeah, I think. But first of all, I think I'm not Francis, thankfully. So I'm myself. So I don't have a vision like him, and I think I have first-hand experience having lived in these places. I don't speak from my office. I don't have an office. I don't have the safety of some other colleagues. I mean, thankfully they are safe and they have that security. I don't have that. So I think part of, I think, my view comes from vulnerability, comes from exposure. I don't think that you can really actually understand what diminishing of value means if you're not touched by it. You can speak about racism, but if you haven't experienced it, you really don't know how it really lands in your being, how it affects your psychology, how it affects your life, how it affects different aspects of your human side. So from my point of view, I think value is not something that you can program and encode it. I think there are values that are absolutely not machine. I think there really are outside the fold of machine. And I think I'm happy about that, because that is what it means to be human in the age of advanced technology. What is left of humanness? And this is a question I ask in my writings, is that I think hopefully with these advanced models, we have more time to actually do inner work, to do more empathetic towards other people, to be able to bring other people into our being, to expand ourselves. And I think that would make us happier, I believe. And yeah, so this is how I take it. I don't agree with the cybernetic view. I actually also question the complexity theory in its capacity to capture basically the I think the subtlety is the better word, the subtlety of value in AI, because I don't think that when we say complexity of values in AI, I don't think they are complex. We make them complex. There are things that are so simple. We don't want to see that simplicity. So I think for me, the subtlety of values and the human condition and predicament, I think is that I am concerned, and I am focusing right now to have theories and ideas about value in AI from that point of view.
Okay, great, thanks.
So it seems we have 10 minutes left. I don't know if anybody has some questions. I would be happy to take comments, thoughts, not just questions. Yes, go ahead, Thomas. Okay, I read it out loud. discussing about, I would like to, is it possible for you to being a double agent? What does it mean? I would like to know, more of your experience discussing with others around in these places you have been. Is it possible to be a double agent in global and south, you mean? But I don't like the word agent, but if you mean bridging between global and then global south and global north, Thomas, I think as a PhD academic, etc., but also experiencing the nomad life. I don't know the flow of your question because I don't know the flow of your question in your mind. But I think in terms of like, if you mean bridging, yes, I think this is something that I wanted actually, I think implicitly I was meaning when I said to Colin that I'm not Francis or I'm not somebody else. I mean, not just putting Francis on kind of like a spotlight here, but I'm not, first of all, I'm not Westerner. I mean, I am happily holding a different nationality from my original nationality, but the experience that I had are shaping my understanding of what actually value is and how values can be totally sidelined depending on the color of your skin, depending on even the subtle name of Iran on your CV, or these are things I experience. So I'm not talking abstractly. And also like looking at for example, I give an example of InDerive application, which is a mobility app. I didn't put it in the slides. That when I arrived to Nepal, I realized that this app is used legally, but it was illegal in Morocco. One of the reasons was basically the taxi driving license is kept from, is handed over from authorities. So opening that up would disrupt the taxi driver structures and who is actually taxi driver and not. So therefore, the app was functioning illegally, risking the lives of drivers, passengers, and just, I think, exposure to the function of the same technology in two different countries under two different governance model really showed basically people are the receiver of value systems. The people are affected by the values that are encoded in not only in technology, but also in the governance structures that hold the value. I mentioned that little altar on a ground. My point was, if you want to encode value in the AI, you just don't need to just look at the AI. You have to also look at the governance model that are present in a certain setting. So just what is your sense of communication of what value mean, able to convey meaning of to both, only one or none, or how do you think such communication can be enhanced? This is a great question, Thomas, and I would like to, maybe we don't have much time, but I think the value, I think, in the West, there are, of course, also being a developed nation, you fundamentally don't, not fundamentally, I think maybe a strong word, but you frequently not experience certain things. Like you don't frequently experience electrical problems, electricity problems. You don't experience Wi-Fi, for example, internet disruption. You don't experience not having access to water. I mean, here you see people actually going with their bottles to collect water. So these are things that you don't see in the West. So I think the development comes also with elimination of memory structures that help us to actually hold values. We take for granted things so easily. That's why I mentioned the art of seeing, that we don't see anymore. We don't see how much progress have been done in order for humanity to arrive in this place. So we just forget that there is so much structure that we're standing on. And I think the gratitude and I think the gratitude that we can have, and also the positivity and building on that, we're destroying those, I think, structures. I think that's how I would say. So communication, I think this is also like realizing the values that are sought after in the West, are different from those of the global south. If their individual is the center of attention, here it is not. Individual is important, but but individual is a part of something bigger than that himself or herself or itself. So I think this is one of the main, I think, differences. I see it very, very strongly. And there are other differences, obviously. I think we don't have much time. This is how I responded. And I think what I try to do is, of course, bridge the gap between the two. Being here for reasons I explained, at the same time, being in the global north and having that experience, I think there might be a balance of view that can emerge, a balanced view. You're welcome. So is there any other question that I can, or comment, or thoughts, reflection? Thank you. It's beautiful listening to you in these times. One comment and a question. If we know AI reflects our social hierarchies, racism, and so on, if we ignore this, not only in terms of hearing unheard voices in large quantity, because the ears are already trained to listen and understand certain voices. Well, that's why what I meant that the selected group maybe are just selected. So there needs to be an effort from the ears to listen. You mentioned an open disposition to life, a positive faith was needed to receive that. What surrounds us in order to interact consciously in the present? What attitudes or practices do you suggest or to cultivate or suggest to eliminate its depths in order to understand in the body what should be expected for the artificial models? That's a great question that you are asking, and thank you for your feedback. What practices I personally do, I mean, I don't want to say I was very enlightened being. No, I was fully ignorant, I have to say. But I think somehow life humbles you. I mean, when you're exposed, I mean, when nobody is waiting you, nobody is waiting for you at job, and you don't have a place to stay, I think somehow the values that I'm talking about, I think they come from implicity, they become more explicit, and also like realizing what are the why this happens. And I think one of the main obstacles on a way is addiction to phones. I think that is something that I see it very a danger to cultivation of values. It's really further and further, as I mentioned, pigeonholes people to little corners, reduces our capacity to see. So I think reclaiming the biological sensory system, I think the sovereignty of that in the age of technology, I think one practice I practice myself is not being on my phone. I'm not on my phones since past 6 months as I used to look. Being more and more conscious about the fragility of life itself as I experience it. Also being grateful for communities that you have, friends that you have, or I think these are things that are so obvious. I don't think that are very complicated. I think meditation I would also recommend as an action plan to consciously be in the present, to really reclaim your the sovereignty of your mind from constantly being poked by different things and being rested on different experiences outside. I think that sovereignty of awareness is something that is so precious, I think, and so important. And I think also like traveling, if it's possibility to go, not to travel or to be in different exposure to different diversity, to things that you don't know, to things that we don't know. I mean, I didn't know so many things. Exposure to different values and being open to expand your value repertoire, if I can say. There are things that people value and are so that I did not know about, but then I realized how important those structures are. I think that's how what I would say, and I think also there is also, I think I mentioned it in the slides. I think opening our hearts. I know it's a bit like a fuzzy word. Maybe not so many tech developers and technology people like that word because you don't know how to put it into model. But I think that's a human side that that would help you to design from a different place, from a different. I mean, we in teachings that I received, there is a mind, body, speech streams, like purification of those. I mean, again, it's a word that is not very in the technology vocabulary, but this is a vocabulary in monastic vocabulary that I think purification contains of like derooting of the poisons that are poisoning the awareness space. I think one of the poisons of our time is hypocrisy. The other one is it's that I mentioned that a selective view. I think an expansion of our I think heart to really first and foremost I think appreciate the preciousness of human life. So that is how I would I understand it. This is my view again. I hope that helps. Okay, I think there is a comment from Thomas that if you can speak towards the end.
Yeah, I saw that one. I'm waiting for further questions. Are there any further questions? Because we could still go for a couple of minutes if there's. But the chat seems empty. Let's give it a couple of seconds. Maybe somebody's typing. I don't know. But of course, if you have a question, you will also feel free to turn on your microphone and just ask your question. But nothing seems to come up in the chat.
Hi everybody, this is Dario from Sicily. Can you hear me?
Dario. Yes, hi Dario.
First of all, thank you for this beautiful lesson. I'm very happy for what you are doing. And I am now speaking from Syracuse, Piazza Duomo, where I see a lot of travelers, a lot of solo travelers. So it seems like there is really a great amount of people now choosing to explore the world and to do it in solo mode, to go alone. Really maybe to better research into ourselves, into himself. I'm thinking a lot too because I also about the technology, the relation with the technology. So my question is direction into this dilemma, no? Is it possible maybe that we are experiencing now with the use of technology, also through the experience of the communication in distance, something new, something like that will allow us maybe to experience another kind of humans, no? So this is my question. I'm very curious, and I'm trying to observe around me the effect also on children about the use of technology, the possibility to memorize and to make pictures, videos. This is something really extraordinary, powerful that now is in our hands. And I really hope that this will give us good results, not just mechanized automatization. Or I really hope that this will give us, as it is giving also to me, the possibility to record and to re-see, to watch again, to look at myself from outside, and also I feel also that all of this has a physical aspect that we should more underline in this context. That is, of course, about space and time relationship, and how our perception of space and time is changing, and how this will inflect our personalities, our way of communication, especially. I just want to, these were my thoughts. That's it. Thank you very much for this opportunity to listen to you, Shima, and also the other questions were very interesting.
Thank you very much, Dario. I think for being here, also for the question. I think I agree with you in terms of the unprecedented opportunity that we have at our hands in relating to reality differently, that I agree with. At the same time, I think there is something else that is happening that is, at least what from my observation, is that that is this almost like a, not everybody obviously, but from the behaviors I see and I saw, especially in historical places where it really are breathtaking beauty, they are not breathtaking anymore. They're finger-taking. They're taking, they are, the beauty is not that powerful enough. The gravitas of, for example, David of Michelangelo, it really grounded me on a bench to just look at the amount of like the, I think, divine-like attention, the extraordinary amount of attention to details that one can have. I think that is something that I was extremely affected in a good way by the I think the sheer amount of detail that is that can be put into into an iconic basically figure, and also being brought into a hard form medium of stone, making it so I think blurring the boundaries between mediums, just making it like a real human being standing in front of you. These are the questions that I think are disappearing from our attention span and space. I don't have a problem with photo making, picture making, video making. I mean, these are great because they allow us to capture moments, valuable moments. What is my my concern is the world doesn't go deep enough in our psyche. It doesn't touch us anymore. It becomes so ordinary. Okay, I take a picture of it. I can look at it later. But later, I think that gap, that is that I think thirst for the rarity, for the beauty. I think these are I think states of consciousness that I think are so valuable. I mean, at least for me, are valuable. Maybe I am obviously here I am talking from my own personal point of view. It's not a I'm not imposing it on anyone, but for me, those little precious moments of something that might end, the preciousness of having a cup of coffee with a friend that I know it's so, that might not happen again, or it's so, I think these are things that I want to, that I am basically pointing towards. I'm not denying the fact that technology today is very powerful. And children, I think it's the research shows that phone and screen time and exposure impacts their attention structure. I didn't include it in this presentation, but I doubt that they, I don't know what will be the impact because it's also very new. So that's it. That is what I can say. At the same time, I know technology is great. We are using it. We are now using technology. I'm connecting from another part of the world with you. You are connecting from a different part. Yeah, so these are the values that it brings, but at the same time, I think there are trade-offs, and there are also disruption of things, the values that are like some of the things that I frequently, I mean, this is like I think a general sin. Everybody has seen it. Like you get a plate of food, even if you're hungry, your own biological sensory system is no longer guiding you to grab a spoon or whatnot to start eating. I see people reaching for their phone first to take a picture of it. So it means that there is something happening so deeply that that I try to study and investigate at this moment to see what I find. So that's what I say.
Yes, let's see what we're gonna find, because it's very interesting, and maybe to judge is a little bit too much. Maybe it's not necessary. It's just to be able to observe and also protect, as you say, the value that are in just the daily life, and enhance our actions, maybe empower them also through the use of technology. Why not? And this awareness is what is needed for sure. And the point for me is the long term consequence. If we can, I don't want to say have control, but to direct a bit the consequences through our work as artists and scientists, and give more exactly ideas or suggestion to all our the people around us, because for sure it makes a lot of confusion. Now you can see there is confusion through the use of technology, and also a lot of manipulation that is really disturbing. No, it's really evident that it's very easy to manipulate people with a phone that tells you what to do, or through the use of fake news and so on. Probably also this that is needed now from us is the capability to not only to see, but it is also, of course, very important, and I appreciate it also because I need to tell you that I just did 2 months ago the eye surgery, and now I can see perfectly after. I'm very happy. Also, this is a technological advancement that it makes me feel like I'm miracle old. I was like 6-degree myope, and now I can see perfectly, just 3 minutes of surgery. But the capability also, I want to underline, to listen and to perceive the messages, no? As you are doing, like perceiving the messages that the nature continuously give us. Sometimes we miss them because we are distracted. Sometimes just the passage of a bird is giving us a lot of symbolic meanings. Yeah, we are into this dreamy also moment. I think we are living into this, especially for me, living in Syracuse, where there is a lot of mythology. You really touch I am in front of the Temple of Athena now. Then later I will go in front of the Temple of Apollo. And so I touch these all the archetypes, mythology, and I put now in the present with a lot of emotions. And these emotions, of course, is energy. And I wish I could really find the right word to express this, but it's really difficult.
I think what I can say is that also I think not trying to find anything, because I think that's what I said, but breathtaking. If something takes your breath, means that you don't have a breath to put a word on something. And I don't think that, I think that obsession with describing things, I think that is something that I want to go in that direction, because I don't think that we have enough time. I think this obsession with describing, this obsession with labeling, this obsession with intellectually figuring it out, this obsession of truly capturing some totality of something that is beyond the grasp, beyond our awareness. I think that is something that I think I tried to touch on. Yeah, so there is also a comment: the rarity and the value of one's own fascination without the influence of others that instruct something as valuable. You take a picture, but then you don't give yourself the time to have the space to enjoy it. Exactly. I think this is something that I say, like from art of seeing, is that an observation is that the immediate reflex of taking a picture of a food, it's not a judgment. It's not a judgment space, it's an observation. That I think that space of reverence, that's a space of realizing the amount of work that went into creation of a piece, a food or something. I think that those are things that are becoming so implicit, and the picture is not, maybe a picture is not the best way, maybe to capture that, maybe just silence, not having a word, I think is the best way. I think we are well beyond our time, 10 minutes. I personally don't have anything more to add, unless there is any more questions. Colin and
There's a
Thomas?
comment in the chat from M, the rarity and the value of one's own fascination without the influence of others that instruct something as valuable. You take a picture, but then you don't give yourself the time to have the space to enjoy it because your perception is not valuable to yourself anymore. Would you like to comment on that, Shima?
I just did. Actually, I just read that comment. I think that's what I was trying to say with the perception and the art of seeing. I think Aldous Huxley so beautifully describes that.
Okay,
yeah.
sorry. Yeah, I'm really sorry. Somebody just came in the office and I was shortly distracted. I'm sorry that I missed that. That's a bit embarrassing. Okay, good. No, but then let's close now. And I mean, the chat has not produced anything else anymore. Shima, thank you so much for this talk. It was really nice. Thank you very much. I hope we hear some more from you in the near future. And with this, I would close this AI and Value seminar for now.
Thank you very much.
Very much for attending, and